Yeah, well, Hanspeter, thank you so much that you're here.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, that's amazing. Okay, so I asked myself, okay, fine, we have that event here. We should have the best individual they have in computer science with us. So I went there. And what you do is, you run into a Swiss German. Yeah? You go to Harvard University, you run into a Swiss German. Let me say one thing, which I think is important. Hanspeter is basically, well, not basically, he's not a finance specialist. Yeah? Let me say that. I think, and that was the idea by design, because I thought we should have somebody here who knows the technology, knows where the technology is coming, and what the technology can bring in the future. And the translation, what that means to finance, it's also a little bit on us. I think Hanspeter will lead the way a little bit in that sense. But it's really about, I told him, show us the universe. Show us what's really possible, what's potentially not possible with the technology, but give us a better feel for it. Because we hear so much about it, and people promise you the moon. But I think really now we hear it from the horse's mouth, so to say. And I think that's really fantastic. Hanspeter, it's such a pleasure to have you. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Alan, and thank you so much for inviting me.
No, sure.
Good evening. I want to talk about a small topic that may have come up already today, AI. Not much is happening, so this should be quick. ChatGPT is the fastest growing consumer product in history. And I was teaching at the Harvard Business School an executive session 2 days after it was introduced. And I told everybody in the room, you better pay attention to this. This is phenomenal. This is a game changer. 5 days later, they had 1 million active users a week. 5 months later, they had 100 million active users a week. And now they have over 700 million active users a week. That's incredible. And it happened in 3 years. And of course, their revenue went up accordingly to about 4 billion now for the paying active users. Now we know there's many different chatbots. How many of you are using any kind of chatbot for personal or work use? Okay, everyone, great. How many of you are using it daily? Still everyone, fantastic. How many of you are paying for a private plan? Good, yes. You should be doing that because that's the cutting edge, right? I pay for Claude. I love Claude's personality. It's great for writing. I love Gemini for image analysis, video analysis, and I use OpenAI ChatGPT for pretty much everything else. And I pay for all three. So yes, I'm an academic that spends a lot of money on silly tools. But let's not forget, we also have open source models from China and also from Europe, Mistral, right? And those open source models are really interesting because they're getting just as capable as the commercial models. So as you're thinking about rolling out AI at Roche, think about the open source models. Because if you deploy them in-house in the future, that could be a huge cost advantage. So this is the 4th technology revolution in my lifetime. I love, my kids get really embarrassed when I tell people I was born before PCs. That is true. This is actually the first PC I ever saw at the Kantonsschule Alpentge in Luzern, the PET Commodore, and I love that machine. It was 1979, actually. You all have witnessed the World Wide Web, right? The mosaic moment. We saw the internet for the first time in Technicolor with terrible fonts, right? With animated GIFs. And then, of course, the mobile cloud revolution. We have data access at our fingertips. My kids are addicted to TikTok, right? Thank you. And now AI is just at the same level. This is the next revolution, and it's going to go through the same cycles as the previous revolutions. We're currently probably in some kind of a hype bubble, right, which will lead into the trough of disillusionment. And then finally, we'll see real gains and real advantages. Make no mistake, though, AI is faster. As I said, ChatGPT is only 3 years young. And what I'm going to talk about today is literally happening this year. And the speed of innovation is absolutely astounding. I've been in technology for 35 years. I have never seen anything like it. This is really unbelievable. So this is the game changer that everyone is talking about. It's a technology revolution, at the speed of the internet. And that's really new. So, as I said, this year is the year of agents. If you pay any attention to the news press, you see agentic workflow mentioned all the time. And it's actually come up today as well, right? So I figured, well, maybe we should try to understand what that means. So I have 3 topics. First, what the heck is agentic AI? And how does it work? Secondly, what does it enable? And then last, but probably most importantly, what are the implications for society and for Roche? And based on my background, I'm going to look at this through a technology lens. So I'm not going to tell you a lot about business cases. I'm just going to show you examples of what the technology enables. And since it's late in the day, I figured it's a really good idea to tell you more about the technology itself, too. I see everyone's blood draining from their face. OK, so what is agentic AI? It's not Agent Smith yet. It's something else. This is the big picture of what an AI agent is that we'll discuss in the next 20 minutes. So agents are systems with reasoning capabilities that autonomously, within an environment, make decisions and change it through their actions, right? That's it. Now think about it. This is basically the same definition I would apply to a human or to a robot. These are all agents. What we're talking about here is a digital agent, an AI agent, shown here on the bottom. So let's try to understand what goes into an agent. The first, and probably most important part, is a chatbot, or a large language model, as we call it, right? So let's quickly try to understand what is a large language model. I mean, you've heard the term over the last 3 years many, many times, and I wonder how many of you have wondered, how does this thing actually work? And I can explain it to you in one slide. It's deceptively simple. And it's absolutely amazing that it works as well as it does. That's the slide, all right? So a large language model probabilistically predicts the next word, and I'm going to use the term token. Token could be words, could be parts of words, could be parts of an image, could be parts of a sound, right? It's going to predict the next token in a sequence. So given a sequence, here as input, the cat sat on the, that's my beginning of the sequence. This machine here, this neural network, predicts the next possible words, plural. And for each possible word, it gives you a probability what is the most likely next word, right? So mat with 45% probability shows up a lot. The cat sits on the mat as part of a children's book in the US. So that's a very likely sentence. The cat sits on the couch is less likely. The cat sits on the chair, etc. The important thing is that this is probabilistic. So you have probabilities assigned to each of the next possible tokens or words. And the model chooses the next word at random. You know, it could pick from the top 5 a random next word. And that explains a lot. That explains why these models are creative. That randomness, right? And why they're human-like. Because if you give it the same prompt twice, it's going to give you a slightly different answer, just like a human. So it's probabilistic, and that explains hallucinations. Hallucinations is fundamental to how these machines work. It's not a bug, it's a feature. We want hallucinations because we want the creativity of the output. And in this basic setting, the machine just outputs the next word and then sticks that word back into the input and then continues. And we call that a feed-forward machine or a feed-forward model. It doesn't reflect, it doesn't go back. Once it goes down a rabbit hole, it starts lying to you, and it keeps lying, right? It can't help, right? It's just predicting the next word. Now think about this. That's it. That's it, all right? You have the fundamentals of ChatGPT. And now imagine what ChatGPT can do for you. Isn't it amazing? It's astounding that a simple mechanism like this works so well. Why is that? The reason is, guess what? Data, right? And data that is used to optimize the parameters of these models. These models have trillions or hundreds of billions of parameters that need to be tuned during a process called training. It's an optimization that makes sure that the prediction of the next word is as accurate as it can be. And what are we using for training? Well, first, we use a very large data set, the internet. The internet is very big. We can't actually comprehend how big it is. So it has all of Wikipedia, it has all of Google Books, it has all of Reddit, it has a lot of dark corners. So that gives it the power of knowing about human knowledge. You can ask it about any topic, and it will know, because very likely that topic showed up in a book or on Wikipedia. I love to learn about quantum computing. Every other week, I have to ask it the same question. How does quantum computing work? Explain it to me like a 3-year-old, right? And every time I get a slightly different answer, but it's amazing. It's a great tutor, right? You can ask it all these different knowledge questions, and that's because it's been trained on the internet. I look at it as a compressed version of the internet. The next step is you need to specialize it. You know, just out of the gate, it's not going to be a chatbot. So if you want it to be a chatbot, you have to actually fine-tune it with chat data. If you want it to be a lawyer, you have to fine-tune it with legal documents. If you want it to be a finance person, you have to fine-tune it with financial documents, right? That's fine-tuning. Then you want it to be nice. And you need to have humans to judge what nice means, because it depends on the context. So you have literally thousands of people giving a thumbs up, thumbs down to the output of the bot. And those people, by the way, are paid by the big companies that provide these models around the world. And then using that human data, you can fine-tune the model again to make it behave nicely. And this is important because this is actually money in the bank if you collect human preferences. So as you're going on to your AI journey, you have to collect the preferences from people in finance, from people in the sciences, etc., from your legal teams. That's going to be really important to update the models. So the model continues to learn. And then lastly, you need context. You need to tell the model, okay, I don't know, I want to do a financial forecasting. Here are the documents that I have, and now I'm going to ask you some questions about it. Or, you know, go on the internet, look up that information, so I'm up to date, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. That's called the context data. And all of this data is really what drives progress. This is what makes these models so amazing. So here is an example. I've started to use Perplexity as my browser. They have a browser called Comet. I recommend it. It's really fun to use. It has replaced Google Search for me for the last few weeks. And I don't think I'm going to go back to Google Search. It's much more useful. So I also have WhisperFlow on my laptop, so I can actually talk to Perplexity. So what you're going to see is I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to get the answer. And for this, we need sound.
Tell me about the latest acquisition by Roche.
And so what does it do? It actually goes online. It searches for those articles that you see referenced on the top, right? And it gives me an overview that I can understand of what just happened. Now, many of you might think, well, this is trivial. This is not going into depth. Well, it's good enough for me. And then, of course, I could ask all these follow-up questions or any other question I have. This is information access, right? we're now talking to our computers. Who has seen the first series of Star Trek? You guys remember? They talk to the computer all the time. It's real. That's what I'm doing. I'm accessing information by talking to my computer. I think it's amazing that, our kids, the next generation, grows up in a world where we can talk to computers and where computers talk back to us. Of course, this also works for video. This is actually interesting, so I can give it a URL of a video, and I can just click on a button and say, summarize this. What it does is it goes to the YouTube transcription, which was, you guessed it, generated by Gemini, right? They don't have people transcribing videos on YouTube. It's all done by AI. And I can get a summary of any video in a matter of seconds. Saves me a huge amount of time. These models are also multimodal. I mentioned tokens. I said tokens are pieces of words, shown here in the middle, but they can also be pieces of sound, or speech, or video, or images. And so, how do you train these multimodal models? Well, you have to have data from that modality. Lots of speech, lots of images, lots of video, ideally with corresponding text. And it's not just that these models can generate each one of these, they actually understand how to translate between them. So I can input text and output sound. I can input text and output video. I want to just show you a few examples of what's possible with those multimodal models. Frankly, I always check this out because this shows you the real power of what these generative AI models can do. Text is fun, but looking at images, we are so good at recognizing if an image is real or fake. So I gave it this prompt. I like to tell it usually, something that's kind of a normal life scenario, and I get this image. None of these people are real. None of this is real, right? Isn't that amazing? It blows my mind. And if you told me you took this on your iPhone, I would believe you. So you can't trust images anymore, right? We can just generate real-life images. Now, of course, this has business implications. Fashion photography has changed forever. Only one of those 4 models is real. Who thinks it's the one here on the right? Raise your hand. The real person. Very few. Who thinks it's this one? Okay, a few more. Who thinks it's this one? Seems to be the majority so far. Who thinks it's this one? Oh, okay, about the same as this. This one. Right? They took 6 photos of her, and then they placed her and the garment, by the way, into different environments with different people. Okay, so product photography changed forever.
I like the hair.
You can take an image, and then you can, of course, modify it, right? I think you look good as a pirate. I think you guys should have an annual Pirate Day. And of course, this works for video. I'm just going to show you this clip. I love this, sequence here because it's all humans, and we are really good at judging if these humans look lifelike or not, right? So just pay attention. By the way, every pixel here was generated by Gemini, the Gemini model called VO3 to be precise. And also, all of the speech was generated by the same model, and all of the sound you hear as well. Okay, everything you're going to see was generated from a text prompt.
How was your date last night?
I don't want to talk about it.
Get the wine, we are going to talk about it.
I finished my work for the assignment.
Wait, isn't it due next week?
Google VO3 is amazing!
Will you marry me?
What? We are just friends.
So, where are we actually going?
Wait. I thought you knew? Where are the Avengers?
Is that a band?
You can't win.
I already have.
All right, so importantly, this is going to change entertainment, right? I have friends at Disney, and believe me, they are working very hard of integration of AI into their workflows. It's not quite ready yet for movie quality, obviously. It's good enough for what they call pre-visualization. If a director has an idea, they can now prompt the AI, or actually have other people prompt the AI. That's a real skill, by the way, and create those clips of what the movie might look like. And what's happening is sometimes they get inspiration from the AI-generated movies that they didn't think about when they had the concept in their mind. And then, of course, now they're starting to integrate AI into special effects. So a lot of sci-fi movies already use AI-generated special effects, etc. That's just going to increase, right? This also applies to speech. I said we can talk to our computers. The computers talk back to us. I want to show you the latest model from 11 labs. And what they've done is they added emotion tokens. These are special tokens in that stream that goes into the model, predicts the next speech utterance, right? And of course, they change the emotion of the utterance.
Hey Jessica, have you tried the new 11v3?
I just got it. The clarity is amazing. I can actually do whispers now, like this.
Ooh, fancy. Check this out. I can do full Shakespeare now. To be or not to be, that is the question.
Nice. Though I'm more excited about the laugh upgrade. Listen to this.
That's so much better than our old ha 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 robot chuckle.
I know, right? And apparently we can do accents now too. Fancy a cup of tea?
Wow, V2 me could never. I'm actually excited to have conversations now instead of just talking at people.
Who has seen the movie Her? Yes, if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. We're living it, okay? There are people now that have AI companions. They talk to them daily, either through text or speech. They talk back to them. Of course, the speech will get more emotional. And there is a real connection there for some people. And, you know, we're going to have to deal with that as a society. All right, large language models, that's all they can do and more. That's really the heart of an AI agent. The next important piece of this is reasoning. So far, I told you we have a sequence input, and we generate the next token in that sequence. We call that a feed-forward model. If you did that when you solved a crossword puzzle, you would never be able to solve a crossword puzzle, right? Because every time you write down a word that is a solution to, let's say, horizontal, you're not considering verticals, right? So you're going to have to iterate, and that iteration is called reasoning. So reasoning is a new unlock for these chatbots. It came about in the last 2 years. And if you're using current chatbots, they all have what they call thinking mode, which is exactly this reasoning step. So I want to show you an example, if I can. Wrong button. First of all, this is how it works, right? So we're actually generating, instead of just one path, I told you one prediction at a time, we're generating multiple of them, and then we're aggregating them at the end to give the final answer. And this generation of multiple possible answers could either happen simultaneously in parallel, or it could happen sequentially. And that's called chain of thought, you know, think step by step. And you see actually quite often how the model thinks before it gives you the answer. So one of my favorite applications of this is called deep research. Who is using deep research? Great. Everyone should be using this. It's phenomenal. It basically answers a question you have about your domain. It goes on the internet, it finds the relevant references, and then it gives you a summary report of the answer. Now you have to know how to prompt it. You have to be very specific what you want. So in this case, I'm prompting it, again, about Roche, of course. So I'm putting in a relative long prompt, asking about what's happening. And you see it's starting to gather information. It took about 3 minutes, right? I'm going to fast forward through this very quickly. You can see all of the references that it references, and then it provides this report. It tells me about the challenges you're facing. It tells me about the opportunities you have. It tells me about different possible strategies, right, that you could employ. It gives me a spreadsheet with financial projections till 2030. And it gives me some strategic recommendations. You know, Medicare pressure, accelerate obesity drug, margin enhancement, et cetera, et cetera. I have no idea if this is any good, but many of you do, right? And that's the important thing to remember. This is only as good as the person judging the output. So you have to judge the output of this. You have to reprompt it quite often. Sometimes I take this answer, I give it to Claude, and I say, judge this answer for quality and accuracy. And then Claude gives me all the mistakes, and I go back to ChatGPT and say, fix those mistakes. And I do this 2 or 3 times, and I get a perfect report. And I do this for my own research, right? We do a lot of research, prior art searches, and that's exactly what I do. Saves a tremendous amount of time. The last piece of agents is taking actions. And to take actions, agents need tools. And I already showed you a couple tools. Internet access, access to data, you know, accessing files that you upload into the context. But it can do much more. And the most important one is it can write code. So first, I show you an example of a user interface. So most recently, ChatGPT announced that they can now actually control a user interface. What you're seeing here is the learning management system that I'm forced to use. And it's not easy. So what I wanted to do in this case, I wanted to download all of the recorded video that I recorded in 2020 during COVID. And there's about 30 of those videos because we had all asynchronous learning. I had to record all of that lecture material. So to download one video takes about 5 minutes because you have to click 20 buttons on the GUI, and then you have to wait 5 minutes for it to fetch the data and then output the video. I did the math, right? 30 videos, 5 minutes. It's a lot of time. I don't have that time. So I told ChatGPT, download the videos for me. And what you're seeing is I'm not moving the cursor. ChatGPT agent, as it is called, confusingly, is moving the cursor, right? It's really a GUI agent. So you can use any application with it because it just controls the GUI. It takes snapshots, it takes images of the GUI, and it figures out which buttons to push. And it's actually not very efficient. It took 3 days for it to download the videos. I have no idea how much money I burned. I'm on the $20 a month plan, but it probably cost ChatGPT a lot more. In any case, it saved me time, right? And I didn't have to babysit it. So that's today. You can imagine in a couple of years that it can just control your laptop if you let it. Of course, you have to give it permission. And of course, you wouldn't let it do everything. But it's going to become your personal assistant, you know? If you don't want to do something, you tell it to just do it, and it will figure out how to operate the GUI on your laptop. Last, but maybe not least, and very importantly, code. I use Claude Code in my teaching. I use it also, and I tell my students to use it for our research. Claude Code has been an absolute game changer for software engineering. That's why I use it for teaching. What you're seeing here is I'm giving it a data set, and I'm having it generate an interactive dashboard, which is what I do in my visualization course. I used to teach students for about half a semester the basics of JavaScript D3, HTML, CSS, all of those web technologies, before they could even put up a simple line graph. Now I teach them how to prompt the AI, and they generate these dashboards in week 2 of the class. That is acceleration. Now, do I check the code? Oh no, I don't care. I just check the output, right? It's a dashboard. If it doesn't look right, I tell it to fix it. If it doesn't do the right interaction, I tell it to change it. If I'm not happy with the color, I tell it to change the color. And it does it all. And it's gotten so good that it's really changing how we teach. I think it's going to change software development fundamentally. We've already seen 40, maybe 50% improvement in efficiency in software engineers. But this is, of course, a toy demo, right? This is good for a class, but it's not good for company deployment. If you want to do real products, I think it's going to be a lot more complicated. And actually, the art is in the prompting. You need to know how to prompt these systems in order to get maximum return. Good. Well, what are the implications? Right? What are the implications? I think they're profound. The first is that AI raises the bar on what we can do. This is examples from Midjourney. Is anyone using Midjourney? Phenomenal image generation tool, right? Lots and lots of creativity. I use it. I love to generate images. I could never generate artistic images like this without the help of AI. It raises the bar on what I'm creatively able to do. And of course, if you're a professional, you can do a lot more because you understand a lot more about composition, object placement, the right camera angle, the lighting. All of that goes into the prompt, right? So it's really become an art of prompt engineering to express your creativity. Is this going to replace artists? Absolutely not. You still need to be an artist to create really good art. This is similar to Photoshop. It's a tool, right? In the right hands, that tool is extremely powerful. In the wrong hands, it's just a tool that generates mediocre images. Importantly, this augmentation does not replace accountability. So this is from a training manual. A computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. Think about that. That's really profound, actually. So especially in your business, accountability matters. Our legal system is built around human accountability, right? It's not built around AI accountability. So at the end of the day, you make the decisions, and you have to be accountable for them. You better check that the AI didn't hallucinate. And we've seen already lots of cases where people get in trouble if they forget to do that. By the way, this here sounds very modern, but it's from IBM Training 1979, right? Data advantage. Data is the new king and queen, as I believe Alan said it first today. And it's a flywheel, right? I mentioned human feedback. It's not just that you can use your data to an advantage. You can collect data from your users or from people in your organization as an advantage to improve the AI. And as it improves, it will give better output, which means more people use it, which means you collect more data, which means you have better output. That's the flywheel. Disney knows this. They start with fantastic data, right, content, but their AI is there to give you recommendations and to collect usage data that they then use internally to decide which movies to greenlight next. Spotify does this, again, to give you good recommendations, and they use your listening habits to give better recommendations to other users, right? That data flywheel is really important. So you have to think, in our organization at Roche, what is the data flywheel? Flywheels, plural. You're going to have many of them. What are they? Because collecting human feedback is really, really important. AI literacy. It's becoming a core professional skill. You know, you have the Roche digital diploma. Did I get that right?
No, perfect.
Woo! I think that's fantastic. That's a privilege, you know? I always say teaching is a privilege. Well, learning is a privilege too. I mean, it's great that the company invests in your skills. And please take advantage of this, because that's the skill you need for the future. No matter where you work, you're going to need it. Some companies, this is from Shopify, they actually say that AI usage questions will be part of their performance and peer review questionnaire. People's salaries will depend on if and how they use AI. I think, not that I really agree with that strategy, but you have to keep that in mind. Your employability, maybe your salary, may depend on the skills that you have using AI. And by the way, that's really important for teaching, right? The next generation, we have, you know, slowly caught up to the AI revolution in education, and at least at Harvard, we're really leading into it, and we're starting to roll out lots and lots of new AI courses, such as vibe coding, right? How does a non-programmer learn how to program with AI? And then lastly, but very importantly, AI ethics. You know, AI is a technical issue, but to be honest, that's the least of the problems, because we're going to solve a lot of the issues you see today. It's going to get better. As the saying is, today's AI will be the worst you ever use, right? But the legal issues are really far behind, and they're very differently dealt with around the world. Copyright, you know, infringement, et cetera, et cetera. Compliance issues, right? I don't even have an idea how complicated that might be. Ethical issues. Should you deploy AI when it replaces human workers? Should you replace call center workers with an AI bot? Or should you use it to augment a call center workers? That's an ethical decision. It's not just a business decision. I'm sure for many it will be, but I know Roche is a very ethical company. You really have to put ethics in front of the decision making and not just go to the bottom line. Policy, right? Evolving. And of course, culture and society. We are absolutely not ready for this. We are not, because we work in human time. And this is evolving very, very rapidly in front of our eyes. But it's an exciting journey, and I'm very proud to be part of it. What a time to be alive, right? So thank you all for your attention.
Hanspeter, thanks.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, on one hand exciting, on the other hand a little bit breathtaking, I have to say. Yeah? why don't we you know?
Good, thank you.
It's just the two of us.
Yes.
So. And thanks, by the way, for the new image. I think
You're
the
welcome.
CFO and the pirate go along very well. I think that's it's a perfect fit.
It's an apt image for you.
I asked you to show us the universe, and I think you really did. Yeah, with all the possibilities that are out there. And let me start with a personal question, because I think what impressed me a lot, yeah, that you were so open about what it meant for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that you had to change. I think, hey, you say you're 35 years in the business. Yeah, you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
You had to reinvent yourself. Yeah, and now that thing came along. Yeah, how was that for you? How did you deal with it?
I haven't felt this invigorated in decades, honestly. Like, this is the most exciting time in my professional life, period. Because we have now capabilities that are really game-changing. I haven't even talked about science. I could give a whole other talk. My research is all about, you know, biomedical image analysis science, and it's a game changer. What we can do now didn't work for the first 25 years when I was in the business, and all of a sudden it works, and we can do so much more. So I'm super excited.
Is it not like, and I don't want to now go the whole path to that philosophical questions, but you know, you say, well, Yeah, and I remember I had the privilege to learn coding at school, at high school. Yeah, no PC inside. There was not really. I know there was a central computer I had to deal with.
Punch cards.
Yeah, it's really. And well, it was a bit more modern. Yeah. But I felt so privileged for a long time. But now I think what you tell me is, hey, you don't even have to know how to code.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that can be done now. And my concern is always, are we losing really the fundamentals with that? Yeah, because if you don't know how the origin looks like, and for us in finance that's important, yeah, how can you then judge really whether the outcome is halfway valid?
No, that's an excellent question. I teach a lot of sessions for high school teachers in the Boston area about AI, because guess what? They're all freaked out, right? Especially English teachers. There is, the first instinct of any student is to use it for cheating. And of course...
They don't, by the way, Hanspeter. No, they don't.
But you can't tell anymore if something is written by a human or by, a student. And the students are smart enough, they prompt it not just give me the best, no, they say, give me the text as written by a high school student in this class, right? And it does it. So that opens up a whole issue of, as you said, skill loss or fear of skill loss. Do we want a generation of students to grow up without knowing how to craft an argument in writing? Absolutely not, right? So we have to rethink education. And guess what? The blue books, the little books are back with pencil and paper. You need to test the skills that are important in a different way. You can't just give a take-home exam and tell them, okay, write an essay by Thursday, because the AI will write it on Wednesday night at midnight, right?
No, that's a pretty optimistic assumption, yeah. By the way, at least when I remember my school. But that's a very different story. You talked about, and sorry, I think you inspired me quite a bit. So I think I don't raise the prepared questions, if you don't mind.
That's good.
When I look at the LLMs, and you tell me, okay, this is all basically words related, or parts of words. That's the starting point.
Or sequences, just sequences.
How is that going together with math? And you know where I want to go to, because, well, in finance, we deal with numbers, These are word-based, if you like, models. So how is that coming together?
So what these companies are doing is they're fine-tuning an LLM on math, right? Word problems. Math is words, except it's very structured. So they actually hire PhDs in math or even famous mathematicians, and they prepare training data that really tell the AI, okay, so here is a math question, and this is the correct answer. And here is another one, and that's the correct answer. And they give them 50 or 100,000 of those. And the AI learns math from that. And that's the whole fine-tuning process. So at the end of it, nowadays, AI has won gold medals in the Math Olympiad for high school students. By the way, does anyone have a kid that does Math Olympiad? So I made the mistake and forced my older daughter into it. She was turned off math for the rest of her life. But I can tell you, these are extremely, extremely hard problems. And the AI won the gold medal, which is the highest distinction, so without any human intervention. So, and now mathematicians are really excited that AI will be able to prove theorems, mathematical theorems that mathematicians work on for years sometimes. I have a colleague who's a theoretician, and he told me recently he had his AI aha moment. He gave it the beginnings of a proof where he was stuck, and he was stuck for several weeks, and the AI solved it. And then he asked it, how did you solve this? Where does this trick come from? And the AI said, I have no idea. But then he prompted and he said, dig deeper. And it found some obscure reference in some online lecture by some mathematician that he had never heard of. So it was in the training data, right? The answer was in the training data, and it just came out. That's magic.
Thanks a lot for this session.
Thank you.
I took a lot of notes. I think it was fantastic.
Thank you.